Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to create our trivia questions, load them from JSON, and we've done this in another example too, in another video. But what we're going to do is take it a step further where we're going to have it click, and when you select an answer, it then triggers the next question. All right, so let's go ahead and just build some of the basic pieces we need. So I'm going to go ahead and make a text, and I'm just going to call this question text. And so it's going to be here. I'm going to make it large enough here. And I'm going to make this large for the time being. And then we're going to create our 4 options for our trivia. So answer 1 text. And then it's going to just say option 1. And let's go ahead and make this decent size, option 1. Then we're going to do the same thing for here. We're going to call this answer 2 text. And in the text, we're just going to say option 2. And go ahead and do this. All right. And then we're going to do the next 2. Option 4. Oh, I forgot to rename it, so I'm going to name it here. Answer 3 text, lowercase a. So let's fix that. There we go. Boom. And then I'm actually going to just grab the size of this just to make my life a little easier. There we go. And then I think this was set to 36. There we go. And then we have our last one, which is answer 4 text. So I'm going to add that here, and then let's go ahead and change that, and then change this here, and then double click here and go option 4. Oh, whoops, I did option 4 there. Let's go ahead and fix that. There you go. All right, not the most beautiful thing, but hey, it's there. All right, so now what you're going to do is grab that format of VS Code. You can grab the different versions, the 10 or the 20. I'm going to just grab the 10, grab all this, hit copy, move it over, and then we're going to jump into our event sheet, and let's just go ahead and make a global variable, call it trivia questions, and we're going to make this a string, and we're going to dump all this in there. There we go. All right, and so now I'm going to go back to layout because we need to add our touch event, and we need to add an array. Oops. There we go. An array, and we're just going to call this questions. There we go. So now let's go ahead and add our start of layout. And I am going to grab our questions and then load it with trivia questions. There we go. Boom. All right. Once we do this, we do want to debug this. Make sure in our questions array, everything popped up. It did pop up accordingly. So now we can go back here and get the next parts done. So I'm just going to add click events to all these real quick. So we're going to do a touch, and then we're going to say on object touch. We're going to start with text 1, and then I'm going to go through this and do the second one. And then I'm going to do the third one. And then I am going to do the last one. All right, there you go. So now we got some click events already set up, and now we have our questions there. Now the thing is, we don't necessarily have our questions loaded onto the main screen. So on start of layout is where we do this. We automatically want it to load the first question. So in here, this is where we kind of go through each part. We're going to pick the question one, set its text, and then we're going to pick trivia questions dot at, and oops, sorry, not trivia questions. The array is called questions dot at, and then we're going to say 0 comma, 0. All right, and then we're going to go to answer 1, set the text. It's called questions dot at 0, comma 1 for the first one. Then we're going to do the second one and so forth. And in the other video, we kind of got that practice. So hopefully this is something that you're getting comfortable with as we move forward with this. So questions dot at 0, comma 3, I believe. Yep. And then let's do this here. And questions dot at 0, comma 4. All right. So we hit play. Is it loading? Everything loaded. That's good. We want that to happen. So now we have our first questions set up. Now, there's various ways how you can get it to go to the next piece. And it's super important that you kind of map out how you want your logic to go from the next part to the one question to the next. We do have a limit on events, so you got to be careful you don't go over that, especially with the free version. If you end up paying for it, then you don't even have to worry, okay? So we're going to just kind of clean this up a little bit, where we're just going to make it where when it clicks on any one of those buttons, it is going to then send the text that's in the button to a function. And this function is going to just check to see if the answer is correct. Okay, so there's a couple moving parts. So let's first talk about why a function. So we're using a function in this case because we want to call it over and over again. So instead of writing it in each one of these touch events, it's just better to call it one time and we could use it and it's a lot more efficient. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our function. So if you right click in this area, add function pops up, it's going to get a function name. So we're just going to say check answer. All right, and now there's a function called check answer. We're just going to leave that as is for right now, because what we're going to do is the other part of our logic. Okay, so what we need to know is what question are we on? Right now, we don't have anything to keep track of that. So let's go ahead and create a global variable and call it question num for question number. We're going to start with 0. All right, so now we know we are on the first question. Okay, every time you click on this, we should go to the next question and then have it display the next question. Okay, so as we kind of start thinking about, okay, well, what do we want this to do? Our actual function. It's just going to check the answer, and then based on the answer, it's going to probably keep track of score or something like that. And then if it's not the right answer, it just goes to the next question. Actually, either option, it then goes to the next question. So we got to kind of build that piece out. So let's go ahead and build our function first, and then we're going to go a little back and forth, but we'll have all this set up, okay? So first thing we want to do with our check answer is to see if the answer is correct. But before we can even do that, we need to double click on our function and take a look at, actually, sorry, we don't double click. I think we right click. Yeah, there we go. You right click on that function, and then you're going to be able to add a parameter. What this means is, hey, you're going to take in a value into this function, and then you have access to this variable that's coming from the outside in, okay? So in this case, we're going to call it answer, and it's a text, okay? Or sorry, a string. So we're going to hit OK. Now, what we can do is use answer in our actions. All right. So what we want to do is just do a conditional check. So first thing we need to do is when you click here, all of it highlights, we're going to right click. You can go to add, and we're going to add a sub event. So inside of this function, we're going to create another event that we're going to check against. So what we're going to do is compare some variables, okay? So we're going to click on System and then compare two values. And I believe we can do this right here. First value is answer. And see how it popped up? And that is our local variable answer. We're going to see if that equals to the answer that's in our array. So we want to call questions dot at, and then in this case we're going to say 0, comma 5 because it was the last element in there. So it's going to check to see, hey, does answer equal this? If so, congrats, you got it right. Okay. Now, none of this stuff is actually going to make any sense if we can't visually see what's happening with our variables and so forth. So let's go ahead and create a new global variable, and then we're just going to call this score. All right. So we're just going to make it where, hey, if the answer is correct, we're just going to add 1 to score. So let's go here, add 2. We're going to add 1 to score. So now we have this. So you're like, okay, let's test this out. So in the first question, the answer was 3. So on here, we need to call check answer. So I'm just going to click on add action, and then notice how functions showed up. We're going to hit next, and then we're going to do check answer, hit next, and it's like, hey, it expects something to be put into here. So what we're going to do is just call answer 3 text dot text. So we just want to pass the text value that's being generated in this button or this click event and pass it forward. Okay, so when we do this, it's going to allow us, here I'm going to move that over so you could read that, functions, it's going to pass the text itself. So if we look up here, answer 3, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, answer 3 here is the answer. Okay, so now if I hit run debug layout, let's take a look at some of our variables. Okay, so first thing we need to do is we need to check what score is. Okay, so in order to do that, let's click on right here, global variables. Question number 0, score is 0. So now if I click here on 3, hey, score added by 1. If I keep clicking it, it'll do that. But if I click anywhere else, well, we don't have anything attached, it will not move. So that means we have done a good job about keeping track of the score. Okay, so let's go ahead and close this for a second. So let's go ahead and add this function call and for each one. So we're going to say answer to text dot text. Okay, done. I'm going to do the same thing for this one. And this makes it so much easier where you're not copy and pasting tons of code. And then if you end up making a change, this is so much easier to do, okay? Because you're just changing the function itself. So let's see, one more. We're going to just do this to answer for text.text. There we go. So now we have all our text going to here. So now it'll only work if it is the right answer. Okay, so now how do we go to the next question? Okay, so this is where we kind of have to ask ourselves, okay, well, for adding 1 to score, if you're correct, what do we do after that? Well, regardless of it being adding 1 to score or not, we want to go to the next question. So we can do a couple of things. We can create a function called next question, so then it runs just that. So we're going to split this up and make one more function. So we're going to right click, add a function. We're going to call this next question. And the reason we're going to split this up is next question should literally just load whatever the next question is. So in order for us to do that, I'm just going to copy this and then paste it and then drag it down to our function. And then I could go in and change this value. All right. Now I'm going to just kind of show you that if I change this value to 1, it's hard coded to show just 1, the next question. But what happens when you go to the next question and the next question and so forth? So this is why we created this thing called question num. So if we actually go in here and change our 0 to question num, it will make it where it will go to whatever the question you have set up in your logic to go to. All right. So when we do this, this makes it so much easier for us to not, you know, keep writing the same thing over and over and over again. Okay. And let's just change all these zeros to questions. Question them, sorry. And now we can go to this other piece. Okay, now that we have question num set up here, we can call next question. So we're going to add one to score, which is what we would normally do. But what we're going to do is we're going to add another event here. Okay, so what I like to do is click at the top, add, and add another sub event. And in this event, what we're going to do is two things. One is we are going to add to our question and our question num. So let's go ahead and see. Well, actually, you know what? We're not doing that here. No, yeah, we are going to do that here. Okay, there's a two-part process here actually, since right now we can't really have that done there. So we're going to right click in here and we're going to add, uh, let's see, another event. Let's say we're just going to do another event, but we don't want it to be a sub event or anything like that. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky because it's not going to let us just do line by line right here. However, if I do a copy paste, it lets me do it right then and there. All right, so what you normally have to do is create a sub blank event, move it around, but I always like to do it this way. So now here is where you could have your condition of what you want to have happen, okay? Um, and now if we think about this, first thing we need to do is check to see if the answer is correct. If it's correct, add one to score. Perfect. Then the next thing you want it to do is go call next question. But before you can do that, you need to just add a piece where you are telling it to add one to the question num. Because either way, these, if it's right or wrong, you want to add one to it. So if you right click here, we could actually combine this and do an else. And that's probably a better bet. We're going to repeat a little bit of code, but at least it will work. Okay, so what we're going to do is let's get rid of this for right now. Hit delete. We just have our else. And in here, we're going to say, okay, if it's not right, you're still going to go into your system and we're just going to add to our question num. Okay, so now that we have our one to question num here, we want to copy it and paste it, and I'm going to put it up here too. And then we still want it to call the function next question. So I'm just going to add here, and I'm going to do it to both of them where we have them running there for right now. Okay, so now we kind of have this else piece here and calling this function itself. And we just really want to make sure that we are doing everything we can when it's checking the answer. If it's not right, the only difference is it's not adding one to score. And yes, we did have to duplicate this a little bit, but for right now, that works well for what we're trying to achieve. Okay, and now when we do this, we call the next question and it would go to the next piece. So now if we go through this, let's go ahead and hit run and let's see what happens. Okay, so I know that if I click anywhere, it's going to go to a question. And right now, I don't know. Oh, notice how it went to 0. So we're going to run into some issues there. But for right now, just know I don't know if this is right or not in terms of the score. So I'm going to go to debug layout so we could keep track of the score. Because I remember this one being right. So I'm just going to keep spamming this one here. And you're like, wait, all of them aren't answer 3. So let's go back here and see what's going on. So if we go in here, that's because we're checking only the answer at 0, 5. So we need to change that. So instead of 0 there, we're going to do question num, and now do that. So now let's go ahead and debug this, and only the first one See how it's going? And then notice after question 10, it goes to 0. The reason being is we've left the array. The array is done. And we're trying to add one, and instead of it erroring out, it's just populating 0 or an undefined type piece. I think that's how its construct handles that. So this is where you need to then do the last piece, which is to tell it to go to like a game over screen or something when you're done with your questions. So we're just going to go ahead and do that piece to this as well. So I'm going to add a new layout and add an event sheet. I'm going to call it game over, and I'm just going to do a quick text that's called game over here. Game over text. And we're going to do this. Game over. Let's make this fairly large. And then, boom, there we go. All right, so now I could go back into my layout, my event sheet 1, and we just need to do a quick conditional check. So we're going to add an event, and we're going to just go into system, and we are going to compare the variable of question no. If it's equal to 10, then we should go to the layout. So let's go to layout of game over. So now let's go ahead and play this. And so if I go to question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 shows. Next one goes to game over. So now you have it where you are able to input trivia questions in as a JSON. You're loading it into your array. You're setting it up. You're doing your click events. You're creating two functions, check answer, that takes in an answer, and then it's doing that comparison, and then it'll add one to question now, go to the next question, and then you could call the function that just loads the next question. Okay, so there's a lot of moving parts in here, but just know that if we kind of go step by step, hopefully this helps you out with building out a trivia game.